Now we'll move on to the food and sleep loving normal type, Snorlax. Like many of the others, we're going to start by folding across the middle line, getting a Snorlax triangle. Now it doesn't show up well on camera, but you're going to take the innermost dotted line and fold the corners across it. As you do this, your new folds should cross each other, not exactly meeting up. Where I'm pointing, you should see two dotted lines that you're going to fold small creases across. These folds are going to be very tiny, so make sure you try to get as close as possible, which might be a little difficult. Now it's time to take these corners and fold them back across the remaining dotted lines. Again, it's a little hard to see here, but hopefully you can see it if you're doing this at home. We want Snorlax's ears to appear as evenly as possible on his head when we flip him over, so fold carefully. Now, similar with Blastoise, we're going to fold the ears over these small dotted lines at the tips of them. You're going to gently fold inward, creating a sort of cavern, and then do the same on the other ear as well. Again, you have the option of keeping this bulgy 3D look, or flattening them down so that it has a more consistent 2D appearance. Really, the choice is yours, so choose whichever one you like better. For the last step, we're just going to flip Snorlax down and fold back his chin, taking both layers of paper and folding behind his head. And voila, Snorlax, all ready to eat and take a nap. It's time to look at the fire and flying type, Charizard. Now personally, I found Charizard to be one of the most difficult ones, but don't let all these lines intimidate you. We're going to start, as usual, by folding over the center line, but also folding over both diagonal lines, making sure each time to get nice, clean, crisp creases. Nice alliteration, right? It's better if you save the middle crease for last, but if you don't, it's not a big deal. It just makes it a little bit simpler because what we're ultimately wanting to get is a Charizard sort of envelope look. With your Charizard looking like an envelope, you're going to take the corners and gently push them inward, fanning out the design. It's going to feel like there's some resistance, and it might take a few tries to get the hang of this, but eventually Charizard should collapse in on himself, and then it's up to you to just smooth it down. Then just take the other side and repeat, doing the same thing, pushing inward until Charizard collapses inward, and then making a nice fold out of it. When you're done, you should have a Charizard Dorito. Now flip Charizard over and try to make sure all of your creases are nice and flat. As you can see here, I'm having a little bit of trouble with some bubbling in my design, which might prove a little bit hard to work with later on. Hopefully you're faring a little bit better. Now we're going to fold across these dotted lines here, taking only the top layer, not the bottom layer with it, and folding inward. If done correctly, the innermost edge of the piece you're folding now should have a slight tilt to it so that it's not sticking up straight at a 90-degree angle. You can see I'm already having a little bit of trouble on the other side with bubbling, but hopefully you're doing better. Now you should be working with something that looks about like this. Ideally, you'll have a little bit of space between your folds so that there's that little bit of a gap between them. If you don't, it's okay. You can just go back and adjust your folds a little bit like we've done before. This is about when my camera started cutting out on me, but you're going to take the innermost edges and fold them back across those dotted lines, like so, making your plumes, so to speak, much narrower. You're going to fold these outer edges over the dotted lines, making sure that the top layer barely is touching your crease. As you can see here, I've got some bubbling and a little bit of white showing from a non-exact fold, so I'll try to fix that a little bit off screen and not bore you with watching me fix my mistakes. Now ideally, your top layer shouldn't surpass these dotted lines here, and that'll make folding much easier so you don't have to deal with crumpling over multiple layers when you're folding. Now I'm just going to finish up with these edge folds as best I can, trying to make sure I don't bend any of my other layers in the process, which proves to be a little bit tricky here, so bear with me. Now last, you're going to take Charizard's chin and just fold it backwards on the dotted line. The last thing you need to do is take the edges of Charizard's ears and fold them back on the tiny set of dotted lines you should see. And now we have our Charizard. Now if you want to tape the back pieces, which I would recommend, just one little piece of Scotch tape on each side should do the trick. I wasn't very successful in fixing the white showing, but it turned out thankfully to not be a big deal. Now we'll try our hands at the Psychic type Mewtwo. He looks a lot like Charizard in terms of his lines, so if you are able to handle Charizard no problem, Mewtwo should be a breeze. We're going to start with the diagonal and center lines again, following the exact same fold pattern as before, folding across the diagonals and then saving the middle line for last so that we end up with a Mewtwo sized envelope. Once you've got those folds, it's going to be the same as before. Taking Mewtwo in his envelope form, grab the corners and gently push them inwards, making Mewtwo collapse in on himself. For a Mewtwo Dorito. Ugh. Now same as with Charizard, we're going to take our top layer and fold across these dotted lines using the outer edges. And also, like with Charizard, my camera cut out. So we're going to skip right to folding again over the inner lines so that you have these plumes. If you want to see more about how to do that, skip to the Charizard section at the timestamp I'm providing now. Now take the innermost edges and fold them over the dotted lines. Doing this properly, your edges should line up for a nice clean fold. Then just repeat on the other side, trying your best to fold over the crease and having your edges match up. Now my camera cut out again, but as you can see we folded the outer edges inward. Luckily Charizard was similar, so if you want to see how to do that, check out the timestamp. Now we're just going to take Mewtwo's chin and fold it backwards. Once you've got that done and nice and neatly folded, you should have your Mewtwo. Now, if your folds were a little bit more accurate, you won't have this white part on his ear, and you'll have something more like my first attempt, which looks a little bit better. We're going to end on the iconic electric mouse Pokemon, Pikachu. Now you're going to start with the middle line, as usual. And as you're folding, you get to enjoy Pikachu's very happy smile, which my hand is criminally obscuring. Flip Pikachu over, and then using this dotted line here, you're going to take both layers of the top triangle and fold downward. If you do this properly, the tip should meet the bottom right between the other two dotted lines. Now we're going to be folding over this dotted line and this one using the black tipped edges at the bottom. Do this with both sides, trying to be as symmetrical as possible with your folds so that you don't have a lopsided Pikachu head. Now we're going to fold these outer edges over the dotted lines here and here. You'll try to get those two dotted lines to match up there. And my camera cut out a little bit, but it's okay. We'll just go ahead and switch to the left side and make our crease there. Again, you want the visible pair of dotted lines to match up as much as possible. You're going to fold the smaller inner portion across these two dotted lines, folding them outward. Now this is going to help the black part of Pikachu's ears match up on front, and I had a little bit of trouble with that every time I tried to make Pikachu, so let's see how it does this time. Switching up the camera angle a little bit, we have our Pikachu, and as you can see, the right side ear actually turned out very good, but the left one could use a little bit of work. Now we're going to finish up our Pikachu by bending back the chin, and this is again an optional piece if you like Pikachu with a more pointed chin, but I personally prefer him to look a little bit more rounded, so we're going to go with that. And there we have it, our electric Pokemon, Pikachu, the mascot of the Pokemon franchise. And there you have it, results may vary. Again, you can put these on a stand using some tape and cardboard or something perhaps a bit more creative. And if you do decide to try this, please post a photo on our social media pages or leave a comment below. We'd love to see it. Until next time, keep soaring, Hawks.